anybody who is there. I hope you are with me, and we do not have great weather. I hope some of you might be able to see or hear me or something like that, and hear the rain lashing down on my umbrella, which is not what we want. Hello, nice to see you all. Hope I can be seen and heard, and you can hear me above the sound of the heavy rainfall against my umbrella. Great to have you here, and all good, apart from the weather. It seems to be the only kind of weather we get these days, mind you. And I'm here in the city centre with lots of people walking around, making their way home from work, going from one place to another. I guess everybody will be emerging from offices, I think, and making their way home very soon, which I hopefully will mean it's okay for us to have a little stroll around and a little bit quieter by the time I come to drive home. I don't want to get stuck in the rush hour traffic, but I'm hoping that by the time I finish and walk back to the car, it'll be okay. Rain again, Leslie, I know. Not in London. Oh, that's because you're down south. You're not in these more northern climes. Still raining in Cardiff. You didn't send it. You didn't send it, no? Still, if it's still there. But it comes from that direction, so I'm going to switch hands. Ooh. Easier said than done. Oh. It's reached Buckinghamshire. Oh, heading your way, Leslie. You're not going to escape. Although you might just be sheltering, tucked up in home. That's the best place to be, I think, today. But never mind, we shall carry on regardless and enjoy a little stroll around Birmingham. Oh, there's some people shouting. That's kind of normal for Birmingham. It's a big city. Last week I was in Berlin, and we had to go somewhere on the tube, on the underground, with the kids from the school group that I was with, right on the first day actually. And there was a guy, I think he'd certainly been, he was intoxicated in one way or another, and he was kind of shouting on the train and banging on the doors and kicking the doors and things. And I don't know what these kids from East Anglia thought about it. They probably thought, what kind of a place have we come to here? But, it's just big city life. Berlin, London, Paris, even Birmingham, same thing, But it is quite normal. Although people in Birmingham do have a very much an independent spirit, and they do like to they do like to contribute to tours, if I can put it that way, virtual ones and in-person ones. I have a colleague and a friend who he's been a guide for even longer than I have, about 35 years. And he does tours all over the UK, and he said, he's done tours in over 100 towns and cities, and he said the place where he gets more interruptions and people coming to try to participate more than anywhere else in the country is Birmingham. And he says that fully as a proud son of the city himself. That's the way it is. Very friendly people. Sometimes though independent spirited, and like to tell people what they've got to say. So hello to people who are just joining us. Who's just joined us? I've seen Emma there for the first time. I can see Leslie. I saw Wendy. I've seen Beatrice. I've seen, oh, Anne as well. Who else have I seen? Did I see Trista there as well? I might have seen Trista there in my... Deirdre, hello. And I don't know who else we've got. If you... Ah, Nancy, hello. Good to see everybody. Oh, I'm wondering whether I should go by the clock on my phone or the clock on the cathedral. The one on the cathedral doesn't always run, so I think we should make the most of the one on the cathedral actually operating, and it's fooled me many times with thinking, oh, is that really the time? And then it's actually stopped. But we should make the most of. Actually, there's not much to choose between them. They're about the same. I keep thinking, oh, the rain's easing off a little bit, but then no, then it's just having a breather before it throws itself fully at us again. And yeah, it's nice to be doing a tour for you again in Birmingham. I've not done a tour, certainly not in the centre of Birmingham, for quite some time, and I certainly over Victoria Square, Chamberlain Square. They were doing so much, I don't know what work, some kind of construction work for most of last year, and it really, it really wasn't good for getting through just to see anything. And now finally we've got rid of that, and so we're going to do a little bit of a wander today. And I'm going to make a start because it's 5 o'clock by my time. It is quite heavy rain. Let me put my gimbal back in the other hand. There we go. Umbrella over like that. Actually, this umbrella is not very big. I bought a new umbrella recently, but it's particularly small. I think it's a choice of gimbal or head. What stays dry. I'll go for gimbal if it comes to it. So big welcome to you all to Birmingham this afternoon. I hope you're all well, and great to have you here in the rain with me this afternoon. I'll get wet on your behalf. So yeah, I called this tour City of Contrasts because I thought, we've done quite a lot of tours in Birmingham. We've had close looks at various parts of the city, including some of the places where we're going to go today. But I really want to focus on the way that Birmingham kind of is always a contrast. Almost everywhere you look in the centre of town, you can see older buildings and very modern buildings right next to one another. And that is just, the way that this city has developed. It's not a massively historical city because it's quite young. It's not young in terms of being a settlement, but in terms of being a large city, Birmingham only grew up to be a big place from the time of the Industrial Revolution. So we don't have any kind of medieval buildings here in the city centre. What we do have is a lot of great buildings from the 18th and particularly the 19th centuries. And then Birmingham is a city that is constantly reinventing itself. And it's always jumping on board with the latest styles of things, and keen to have the latest types of buildings and infrastructure and so on. And that's very much why we end up with these contrasts between different styles of buildings. And we start really with even just as we start here with an amazing contrast, because we're in the churchyard of St. Philip's Cathedral, which is our Anglican Church of England cathedral. And as we look from exactly where I'm standing, we've got St. Philip's Cathedral, which was completed in 1715, a Baroque style church. And then immediately to the right of it, we have one of our most recent buildings, completed in 2021. This is a 108 metre high, 26-storey office building. It's the tallest office building that has been built outside London since the millennium, and it replaced a 1970s office block that was on the same site. But a really big contrast straight away between what was built in the early 18th century and then 306 years later, the modern tower block there. And I'll leave it up to you which one you prefer. St Philip's, a very small cathedral. For the first 200 years of its existence, it was just a parish church for people living in this part of Birmingham. Now, the area that we're in is very much one of the main business areas of central Birmingham. There's an awful lot of offices here, banks, accountants, company headquarters, legal companies, you know, those kinds of things. The main financial and business district is right around here, in a combination again of modern and older buildings. And we're going to make our way a little bit through that area. And ahead of us we've got what I think is one of our finest buildings, which has been really beautifully restored in recent years. It was built at the turn of the 19th and 20th centuries, and it's called the Grand Hotel, and it has been redeveloped as a hotel, smaller than the original one. Some of it was sold to be refurbished as offices, and the Grand Hotel is beautiful outside and the interior as well. It has an amazing ballroom from when it was originally built, and they've just made such a fantastic job of restoring it. It was originally kind of one of these big railway station hotels, because very close to it is Snow Hill Railway Station. Snow Hill Railway Station was originally beautiful Victorian building. Nowadays that is long gone, but the Grand Hotel remains. I'm going to and the street that we're about to cross is called Colmore Row, named after a family called the Colmore family, very wealthy family who originated in France, French Protestants, Huguenots, who came over here to escape religious persecution, and they were a wealthy family of merchants. And they bought a lot of land on the edge of Birmingham, as it was at the time, and the Colmore estate is essentially where the financial district of Birmingham is today. So everywhere we're going to be walking for the next few minutes, where all of this, the Grand Hotel, where all of these big office buildings, company headquarters, legal practices, all of the land that it's built on belongs still to this day to the descendants of the Colmore family, and all of these companies pay them a ground rent every year. So by leasing off their land for development, the Colmores made a long-term investment. And this is the entrance to the Grand Hotel. What a beautiful kind of turn of the 19th and 20th century, kind of Art Nouveau style entranceway. Isn't it great? I love that. And one of several large hotels in this area. The Grand Hotel, originally a hotel, has always been a hotel, well, apart from when it was closed for refurbishment, but all the time it's been open. But their next door neighbours is another one of our very nice city centre hotels, which is called the Hotel du Van. And the Hotel du Van is in a building that started life a very different purpose, the Birmingham and Midland Eye Hospital. Look at this beautiful Victorian red brick building. The Eye Hospital was founded in 1823 on this site, but the building as we see it today, built in 1883. And it was one of Europe's leading eye hospitals, actually, for many years. And it only closed as a hospital in the late 1990s. A new eye hospital was built, and the building was completely stripped out and converted into a very nice hotel. And it is an absolutely glorious building, isn't it? But again, you can't look at the beautiful Victorian red brick buildings without getting the modern ones. Modern office blocks here in this business district. People, lots of companies investing in the real estate here. But you know, this is where thousands of people come each day to work. A lot of the old buildings of the Victorian age, which might once have been residential, but mainly have always been commercial. But you can see it's a very much a contrast between the ones that have been redeveloped, mainly in the 1970s and 80s, but some a little bit more recently, and those that maintain their original late 19th century, early 20th century look. It's almost, you know, you get one side of the road mainly modern, one side of the road a little bit more old-fashioned. But always with these interesting facades, very typical Victorian. And we've got another hospital here as well on this street. So this was an area where, you know, you had the eye hospital, and you also had another. Oh, I'm about to get hit by a car. There used to be a one-way street in the other direction here, but no longer. I used to walk across it all the time. So this is another hospital building, the Ear and Throat Hospital. Nowadays it's the headquarters of a big legal company. And the street that it's on is called Edmund Street, which was the name of one of the leading members of the Colmore family who used to own the land. In fact, Edmund Colmore was the one who was mainly responsible for leasing off the land for development. So you've got the Ear and Throat Hospital, and then directly opposite, pure concrete and glass construction of the 1970s redevelopment of the area. And directly adjacent to the hospital is an absolutely gorgeous building, terracotta building, which was a material that was used a lot in Birmingham and in many industrial cities. One of the main reasons for that was because terracotta was very resistant to pollution compared to the local sandstone in this area particularly, and it was a very good material to build with, the bricks and the red clay terracotta. And this building was actually the first ever telephone exchange in Birmingham, when they had literally just just a few buildings connected to the telephone lines. This was the first telephone exchange that the city ever had, what a beautiful building it is. Nowadays, again, corporate life going on in there, and rather more telephone subscribers than were the case back then. But look, you can see the building's called the Exchange. So modernised inside with this great original gates as well. Look at them, restored but in the original style. And they're fantastic. So the building we saw from a distance from the cathedral, number 103 Colmore Row. It's not got a name, or I don't even know if it's got a nickname. There it is, 108 metres high. And there there are not many times where you see a modern high-rise building like this and you think, whoa, that's a big improvement over what was there before. But in this case, what was there before was a 1973 brutalist tower block made out of kind of, it wasn't even grey concrete, it was kind of a, it always looked kind of a browny coloured concrete and glass, and it really didn't look great at all. I mean, this might not look great after a few years, but John Maidin's, ooh, there goes the umbrella. Sorry guys, my umbrella has just blown out inside out. I'm going to have to take it down. It's one of the windiest spots in town, this is. It's a real wind tunnel through around this big building, which they never take into account when they build them. I thought it was, the rain had slowed off. And I was going to take my umbrella down, but it's coming again now, so I'm not going to do that. We're going to get across here, and we're going to see that the entrance to the building is kind of under, it has an open entrance and kind of atrium area, which are actually four stories high. So it's kind of like the porch, if you can call it that, 4 stories high. And these kind of geometric artworks are kind of hanging there, are the size of a double-decker bus. And not only does it make a contrast from a distance when you see it compared to the cathedral, it's a huge early years of arts and crafts type style. We'll see those in a minute if I can get my umbrella to stay the right way up. And again, all banks called the Colmore. And next to it, another beautiful banking building. I think that one is still offices. Co-op Bank on the ground floor. And this one is the one that won a lot of awards for arts and crafts style architecture. Eagle Star Insurance building. And it has these amazing metal doors. It's a coffee shop these days. I've never actually been in there. There's not many coffee shops in Birmingham that I haven't been in. But look at these original insurance banking hall doors. Solid metal. Not too thick, but yeah, pretty cool. So we come into the kind of the main civic square of Birmingham, where there's always construction work of some kind going on. But we're looking at our council house building here, an absolutely beautiful building of the 1870s, and built at one of the highest points of the city centre to show it off. It's even windier here than where we were before. Now let me take the umbrella down for a couple of minutes. The council house was a very modern building. So up on the dome you might be able to see like little circles going around it. They're not decorative, well they are decorative in a way, but they are also practical. They are the vents. It has a convection air heating system, which was absolutely unique on a building of that size when it was built. It was a real kind of state-of-the-art ventilation and heating system they were using, and it was built to be the headquarters of Birmingham's local government, the Birmingham City Council, which is why it is called the Council House. At the time they were seen as an example of how to run a modern city. I'm not going to get into political debates, but I think it suffices to say that such reputation is long in the past. Well, at the moment our city council is trying to find ways to get through essentially a bankruptcy of the local government coffers, which is not good news for any of us really. I'm going to go down the steps because what we're going to see is how an area can change. So these days the square in front of the council house is called Victoria Square. It's named after Queen Victoria, but it used to be very different. There used to be a little garden here, and before that there were buildings here because there were two streets. So there was a street over there by the council house, and then there were buildings, and then there was a street over there, New Street. And on this spot where we're standing now, where we can see the flowers, part of the square there, was a church. It was called Christ Church. It was demolished in the first few years of the 20th century. Essentially, as transport improved, more and more people were moving out into the suburbs where they were attending churches in the suburbs, you know, where they were living. So a lot of sort of city centre churches had dwindling congregations, and so the Church of England rationalised. They closed some of them down and demolished them. Some of them were just repurposed. The name though lives on today in these steps, Christchurch Passage. It's the name of these steps, reflecting the fact that there used to be a church on this spot. It's a very, very nice church actually. A classical style church, sort of columns and a nice tower. A 19th century church. It wasn't there for very long at all. So we're coming down onto New Street, and well, there we've got definitely old and new, the new trams and the older buildings around. But the tram network is being expanded at the moment, because Birmingham being Birmingham, they decided in around 1960 that they didn't want trams anymore. They thought buses were the future, and cars and buses were the future. So they closed down what was the world's second largest tram network, got rid of all the tram lines, got rid of all the trams, and now of course we want a tram network, so we've got to start building one again from scratch. So here's a lovely view up to the council house, and we see, I don't know if we've ever seen this before on my tours, and that is the fountain actually with water in it and running. It's something that we've not seen a lot over recent years because they've had an awful lot of problems with it. But the fountain is the centrepiece of the square. It's an artwork that is officially known as the river, and the artist's idea is to have the river of life flowing from a female figure at the top down to the next generation in the bottom of the pool with the two kids. But as you rightly say, Elizabeth, nobody knows it as the river. It's known universally as the floozy and the jacuzzi, or just the floozy. It's very nice to actually have water running in there. Now last week I flew back from Germany, where I'd been on a trip, and I got on the plane, or I was getting ready to get on the plane in Frankfurt for the last leg of the journey back to Birmingham, and I went into the airline's app and to get my boarding pass, and you know, it said Birmingham and it has information about the destination, and I was quite interested to see what picture they would have of Birmingham as the picture on the Lufthansa app. And essentially the picture on the Lufthansa app was just about that, a little bit more lit up. So it was kind of interesting. One of these sphinx-like figures, the guardians of the square, also created by the same artist as the floozy, which was Dhruva Mistry, a British Indian artist. And here goes the tram. And we're going to see some more contrast here between old and new. So what we've got directly in front of us is a beautiful building from the 1870s. This was Birmingham's first central post office. There is still a little post office in the basement. These days it's private offices. And next to it, another 1980s building, which is an office building, 1 Victoria Square. So Victoria Square House is the old post office, and number 1 Victoria Square is the modern building next to it. At one time, the buildings like the post office extended all the way along the road here and on surrounding streets, but they were destroyed not during World War II, as many people might think. They were torn down by local planners in the 60s and 70s to make way for modern buildings, and only a couple survived, where petitions were got up and where they managed to get conservation orders on a couple of the buildings, so we managed to save some of them, including the post office building, which was due to be demolished in the early 70s but was saved from that fate. And it is a fantastic building as well. Yeah, lovely office building. Now, in the late 1980s, a bank called the TSB, the Trustee Savings Bank, a national bank, they decided to move their headquarters, their main HQ, from London to Birmingham, and they acquired the lease for the entirety of this building, and they built a modern extension on the back. They moved up here for a few years, and then they merged with Lloyds Bank, which also began life in Birmingham way back in the 18th century. But then their headquarters became obsolete, so they had to move again. But the TSB legacy is the extension to that building, but also it is the fact that here in the square we have this particular artwork, which is called the Iron Man. And the Iron Man was a gift from the TSB Bank to Birmingham, and it used to stand directly outside of their offices, and it was moved over here because it would have been in the tram lines when they were actually started developing the trams. The Iron Man is a metal sculpture, a human figure by a very famous modern British sculptor, a man by the name of Anthony Gormley. He is most famous probably for the Angel of the North, for the other place, which are the statues on the beach on the Mersey estuary, and here in Birmingham, the Iron Man. No, they didn't take him with them. They left it. It was a gift to the city. They left him here, and I mean, the Iron Man is kind of, I think he's okay. People didn't like him initially, but I think I think people have come to like him a little bit more. I don't know whether she'd be very amused though. This is Queen Victoria, of course, who the square is named after, and much of the square is things that she would recognise. She wouldn't recognise the big office block, of course, but the council house was built in her time of her reign, the post office building, the town hall, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. So she would look around here and kind of recognise some of the buildings. But the town hall, well, the town hall is an interesting name for a building because normally that would denote the seat of local government, but not here. The town hall was built as a music venue, a concert venue, a venue for lectures, for big public meetings, basically anywhere that needed a big hall. And it was built in the 1830s in a classical style. So it looks like a classical temple. So, even within our Victorian buildings, we've got contrasts between this kind of Renaissance style, like the council house and the post office, and then we've got this very much ancient classical style building. Still a concert hall these days. Very, very good acoustics, and known particularly for the organ. Has a fantastic German-built organ within there. So as an extension to the council house, was built in 1885 the museum, Birmingham Museum and Art Gallery. It was built, paid for half by public money and half by private donations, and people, wealthy local people, donated artworks, or they donated money to extend the collection. In their wills, they maybe left something. This is the original building with the clock tower. The clock tower, which I think that's the second public clock today that's telling the correct time. I don't know what's going on. Something funny is happening here in Birmingham today. The clock tower here is known affectionately as Big Brum. Nowhere near as big as Big Ben, of course, but named after the nickname of the city, Brum. And people from Birmingham are Brummies. It's called Brum because an old way of saying the name of Birmingham was Brummagem. But that's why we call it Big Brum. And the Museum and Art Gallery was built by the same architect as the council house. It's kind of an extension. So you can see, you get the council house there, you get the windows that are lit up, and then when you see that the windows are not lit up, then you're into the gallery, which at the moment it's been closed for about 3 years, maybe more than that, for a full refurb. They've redone all the wiring, all the plumbing. The electrician, who we normally have if we need any work doing at home, had a long-term contract doing it, so he could never come and fix anything that we needed for the last few years. Of course, fixing my lighting and plugs is much more important than the gallery, but they really have done a great job on the cleaning up the exterior as well. It's going to reopen very, very soon, at least gradually in parts. Look at the way they've cleaned up this amazing facade and the stonework, the mosaics. Absolutely gorgeous. And I'm looking forward to getting in there again when it reopens. Now, the museum was the brainchild of one of Birmingham's great politicians, who also laid the foundation stone for the council house because he was mayor at the time, a man by the name of Joseph Chamberlain. And this square, this little square here, is named after him, Chamberlain Square, and in the middle of it is a monument celebrating the career and achievements of Chamberlain as mayor, as a member of Parliament for Birmingham, and for all the things that he did in terms of improving the lives of people in the city and on a national basis, because he was a great one of the real prime movers behind the introduction of universal free primary education in the UK in the 1870s. And he was responsible for the opening of public libraries, public swimming baths, schools, improving the paving and the street lighting, clearing some of the worst slum districts and building new housing for working people. And the thing he's most famous for in Birmingham is the reason why his monument is surrounded by these pools and fountains, is he came up with a scheme to bring a fresh, clean supply of drinking water to Birmingham from a reservoir in the Welsh mountains, and that's still where we get our water today. Now, I always refer to this as a monument. It's called the Chamberlain Monument. It's not a memorial, because a memorial commemorates someone after they've died. But this was built while Chamberlain was still alive. Local people gave money voluntarily to pay for the construction, and he would see it when he came back to Birmingham in his later years. He would be able to see the fact that the local people had given money to build a monument for the things that he had done for their city and to improve their lives. So that's a great thing. But we really see the differences in old and new here. You know, we look around, we go from the main museum building now connected to the original bit by a bridge. We've got the museum, the council house, the town hall, and then, well, we've got something that's still under construction. Who knows what that's going to be. Then we've got this modern built office building directly adjacent to Chamberlain Square, which opened a couple of years ago, and I think it's a real triumph the way they've done this, because the building itself I don't think is anything special, but the glass facade means that even on a day like today when it's dull and raining, you get amazing reflections in there of the council house dome, the tower on the gallery, the Chamberlain monument, and you really get, it makes the square feel really much more open and just reflects the historic buildings. Now ahead of us is a site that has changed many times. On this site was, in the 19th century, a place called Mason College, which was a forerunner of the University of Birmingham. And then in the 1970s, Birmingham built its new public library here, which was a brutalist construction. I don't think many people liked it architecturally. King Charles, when he was the Prince of Wales, he's no fan of modern architecture, as I'm sure many of you will know. He said it looked like a carbuncle on the face of Birmingham, and it looked more like a place where you would burn books than keep them. Suffice to say, he was no fan. And that was demolished a number of years ago. And that was built designed by the same architect who designed the tower block that I was talking about earlier, a chap by the name of John Maiden. And when John Maiden died, which wasn't that long ago, about 20 years ago, his obituary in the Architecture Journal, or whatever the main journal for architects in the UK is, his obituary. Now, normally an obituary, you'd think they're going to find nice things to say about him. And they said he was notable for being the architect who had more of his designs demolished again within his own lifetime than any other. And I thought, wow, that's the nicest thing you can think of to say about the poor guy. But yeah, John Maiden's brutalist style was not for everybody. And there's a really interesting book, actually. I don't remember the author, but it's called The News Where You Are. And it's a book set in Birmingham, and it's all about the demolition of brutalist architecture and the controversies and among the local people. Really worthwhile.
Yeah, see you, Barry.
So we're heading through another area where we have buildings from different eras. I've never seen this one opened. This one's only very recently opened. Another modern one. And this whole development here glories in the name of Paradise, and that is because exactly where we're standing now, in the 19th century there was a street called Paradise Street, and that is named after the fact that there were gardens and kind of the edge of kind of a landscaped area that used to be part of a medieval monastery. It was called the Paradise. The building here is up for demolition. It was built in the 1980s, late 80s, early 90s. It was a business hotel called the Copthorne Hotel. It's due to be demolished. And then we're getting I think it's a 7-sided or 8-sided building, unusual geometrically shaped building that's going up over there. But again, right next to them, buildings from different eras. And we're going here into an era that we haven't really looked at yet in terms of Birmingham's architecture. We've seen a lot of Victorian stuff, we've seen a lot of modern stuff, we've seen and talked about 1970s stuff, But this is a part of Birmingham where there was a lot of development in the 1920s and 30s, and that is very much what we see here. Now, there was a grand scheme at that time to redevelop this entire part of the city in this style of architecture, and in the museum and gallery, whenever it reopens, there is a model, like a designer's model of what the area would have looked like. There would have been an identical sort of a twin building to this one at the other end of the square. There was a colonnade, part of which was built. There are buildings all around here in this style, but only a few of them were ever completed, because then we came to the outbreak of the Second World War. And after World War II, there were two problems. The first one was that there's no money for big construction projects, because we had to do things like rebuilding the houses that had been destroyed, the factories that had been destroyed, the infrastructure, and getting through the post-war austerity. And then there was also no appetite for this style of architecture, because this style of architecture of the 20s and 30s had been very, very popular in the fascist regimes in Italy and in Germany. So if you go to Mussolini's sort of area of Rome, if you go to the area of Munich particularly, where the Nazis did a lot of construction work, and to some extent in Berlin as well, although not so much, you will see buildings in this kind of style. So, you know, nobody wanted to be building in a style that had become associated with those regimes. So all we have is this building, which is called Baskerville House, named after a famous printer and typeface designer called John Baskerville, who lived in a house on this spot in the 18th century. And it belongs to the City Council. It has officers in there. It also has the offices of our regional elected mayor, a chap by the name of Andy Street. He has his offices in there as well. But other buildings that we have from that project include this one. This is our main war memorial, the Hall of Memory, built in the 1920s. And across the way we have one other, and that was built as the Birmingham Municipal Savings Bank, and it was a bank for many, many years. Nowadays it's been acquired by the University of Birmingham as a conference centre and event space, and they have a very, very nice coffee shop as well. But directly next to this Baskerville House building from the 1930s, we have a very modern building. Completed 11 years ago, 2013. This is the Library of Birmingham. So this was what replaced the one that King Charles said was a carbuncle and looked like a place to burn books. This is the modern library that replaced it. A huge investment and a huge complex, actually. It extends partly under the square. There's a lower ground floor, and it contains the city archives. It contains some of the historic collections. The golden circular structure on the top is an absolutely beautiful room called the Shakespeare Reading Room, and that was taken painstakingly from a 19th century library, and every central library in Birmingham since then it has been reconstructed in. Beautiful wood panels, and they hold the collection of the Birmingham Shakespeare Society, which is one of the most important collections of Shakespeare works and memorabilia in the world today, and they have all of that in there as well. The library was built to give them more space, to provide a facility for the city, and it's part of a thing that Birmingham was having very much to move away from its industrial past to being seen as a modern city. And one of the ways to do that is to have kind of conversation piece modern architecture that people will have a discussion about, will have a debate about whether they like it or not, and these kind of things. And the idea is that it'd get the city known as a modern place rather than an industrial city. And this square is really, kind of become an important place for events. So it's quite empty at the moment, but Christmas time they have an ice rink here, they have the big wheel here, various fairground rides, and we also have various events in here during the year, New Year celebrations, outdoor concerts, all kinds of things here in Centenary Square, which was named to celebrate and redeveloped to celebrate 100 years of Birmingham achieving city status. That happened in 1989, so it achieved city status in 1889. Trista, it's one of the few modern buildings you don't dislike on site. I quite like the library, actually. I'm not a massive fan of modern architecture, but I do like the library. And at the same time, the 1970s building got a fantastic internal refurb and modernisation, and that is the Birmingham Repertory Theatre, one of our main theatres, this one particularly specialising in more in drama, I guess, rather than concerts and musicals and things. Although they do have a little bit of those kinds of shows as well. But the Rep opened in the 1970s, and it's had a fantastic refurbishment as part of the project to build the library. It's very much part, kind of an area where the focus is on culture, and with the library, the Repertory Theatre, and in the International Convention Centre, Symphony Hall, which is Birmingham's most important and I guess best known concert venue. Symphony Hall was opened in the early 90s and was an absolute state-of-the-art concert venue. Acoustically, at the time, they said it was in the top 3 in the world. There's been a few very modern concert halls built since then, so nowadays it's no longer quite so high, but it can match acoustically most top concert halls, and they have all kinds of music there, and I'm sure anyone who has maybe visited Birmingham for a concert or has lived in the area can vouch for the great acoustics and the variety of music they have at Symphony Hall, which is part of this complex, the International Convention Centre, and that was built in the late 80s, opened in 1992 as part of Birmingham's drive to move away from being an industrial city to boost the local economy in terms of having more business, service sector, and particularly conferences and exhibitions. We have a huge exhibition centre out near the airport, and we have this convention centre in the heart of the city as well. And you really have kind of a great view of modern Birmingham in many ways. So in the Victoria Square, you're surrounded by those Victorian buildings, the council house, the post office, the town hall. Here you're very much in the modern city with the library, the Repertory Theatre, the Symphony Hall behind me, the new buildings in the Paradise development, and across the way another big building, a bank built by HSBC, who moved part of their headquarters operations from London into there, next to the old municipal savings bank that was built there in the 1920s. So really is kind of you look at the buildings wherever you are in Birmingham and you really do see variety, you see contrasts, and you see reflections in the modern glass buildings of buildings from a previous generation, and it always is kind of a place where you there's always something to look at, I think, and you walk around and you know there's not a unified style like you walk around some cities, particularly I guess older cities. You can see that the city has kind of always been a growing place, a developing place, a changing place, and it fits in with Birmingham's reputation for manufacturing, for innovation, and as a place of tolerance and free thinkers in previous times. So I'm going to leave you here as the rain is just starting to come heavily again. My gimbal is starting to do a couple of strange things, and I would say that we have had a good look around, and I'm going to just turn my camera around so you can see me, and I want to say a big thank you for joining me today. I've really enjoyed it. I've not been here in Birmingham with you for a long time, and I'm glad to do it again. Do have some more tours coming up. Next week I don't, because I'm away again. I'm going to Munich next week, where I might see some buildings like Baskerville House if I go to the relevant bit of the city. So I'm over there with a school group for a interestingly, it's a school that we see on some of my tours, because it's for the Stratford-upon-Avon Girls Grammar School, and their students are some of the students who share lessons in Shakespeare's old schoolroom, which is kind of strange, but I'm doing it. So next week when I do my tours, I'm going to be followed around by 29 teenage girls and 3 teachers. Could be interesting. But when I come back on the 24th, Sunday the 24th, I have an As Live tour, and it's the first of my 3 tours that I filmed for you when I was in Berlin last week. So we have a tour on the 24th, As Live. We're going to be walking from the Brandenburg Gate to the old German Imperial Palace along the Grand Unter den Linden Boulevard in East Berlin. And we're going to be talking a lot about the history of Berlin and seeing some of the iconic sites along there as well. Thank you very much, Beatrice, for putting the link there. That's got the links to all my upcoming tours and talks. So the Berlin one, and then we've got Everybody Has a Story the following Wednesday, which is none other than Tristo is here today. Looking forward to that very much. And the day after that, 2 weeks today, we're going to be in Shrewsbury for a live tour. It's called Shrewsbury Surprise because I don't know yet where I'm going to take you. My plan, if the weather has been good in the run-up and is okay on the day, is to do some different parts of the riverside in Shrewsbury. But if it keeps raining like this, I suspect that we might be better off sticking to some of the higher ground. But that'll be the surprise. It'll be a surprise for me too. So I'll hopefully see you there as well. We've got the new sponsored tour funds up as well that I put up yesterday, and Beatrice has very kindly put all of the links on there for Buy Me a Coffee, for Ko-fi, where you can get your tickets for upcoming tours. So on that note, have a wonderful rest of your evening, everybody. Have a lovely weekend and a good week. And I will see you, if I survive my time in Munich with a class of teenage girls, I will see you next week for more adventures. So take care, everybody, and bye for now. See you soon.